Hello comrades, Commissar Bro here today with Warhammer Chaosbane, brought to you by Big Ben Interactive and Eco Software. This game, right off the bat, is actually a lot of fun, I'm not going to lie. This is actually the beta version here, so first off, you know, there's going to be some stuff, this isn't the final version, all that stuff out of the way, but this is probably going to be a pretty good representation of what the final product will be like. Now, we still have a few, well, let's say about a month and a half before the game is officially released on June 4th, but it's a hell of a lot of fun, and what we've already got. Think Diablo or Inquisitor Martyr, except where Inquisitor Martyr had a few pitfalls, and honestly, I almost think that's a buzzword for negativity, because it had a good idea, but it didn't quite get there, whereas this game, on the other hand, does a phenomenal job of not only selling the Warhammer universe, specifically the Fantasy Battle one, or technically not Age of Sigmar, but again, the older one, but also being a fun game to play, something you're really going to be able to enjoy with your friends. I get a very strong vibe of not just Diablo, but also Gauntlet playing it, or Helldivers, or Magicka, but, you know, again, a lot of top-down hack-and-slash-esque games, or action RPGs, however you want to look at it, have very similar traits, and again, this one does them right, as far as I'm concerned. So, with that said, we're going to start out taking a real quick look at the four heroes that are in the game. First off, you have the Imperial Soldier, Volan. And then you have the High Elf Mage, Elantir, the Dwarf Slayer, Bragiaxbiter, and then Alessa, the Wood Elf Scout. Each one of them has different play styles, and you can see their strengths and weaknesses as you play through them. But we are going to be playing the Imperial Soldier, because that is probably one of my favorite factions in Fantasy Battle, is honestly like the Reichlanders and the Empire of Man in this case. I do very much like the dwarves, but I'm not as big on the Slayers as I am just the regular dwarves. And I also like the Wood Elves, but I don't like the Wood Elves that much. I'm really kind of more of a mankind type person. Just like with 40k, you know, my favorite tends to be the Imperium of Man and so on. So anyway, we are in Chapter 1, and this is probably about 2.5 hours or so into the game, and I think this is a good representation of what the actual experience is going to be like. Forewarning, you will be seeing a lot of enemies, a lot of fighting, and hopefully some cool abilities that you're going to enjoy as much as I've enjoyed. So, with that said, let's get started. So, right off the bat, again, this being Warhammer Fantasy, there are some differences between 40k. The biggest being it doesn't take place in our own universe 40,000 years in the future. It actually takes place in an alternate universe filled with all sorts of mystical beings and high magic and so on and so forth, from high elves and dark elves and rat men and lizard men and orcs and dwarfs and so on and so forth. So it's very high fantasy. Like, I'm talking mages calling freaking meteors from the sky to wipe out a whole army. If you've played Total War Warhammer, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't played it, then you should probably go play it. It's a pretty damn good game, especially Total War Warhammer 2. So, with that said, let's talk a bit more about the game. As you can see here, you have a bunch of abilities at the bottom left. The ones that I currently have equipped to my boy here is Break Through the Ranks, Incisive Breakthrough, Banner of the Empire, Shielded Charge, Whirling Slash, and Slash. Now, these abilities are customizable through right here. As you can see, the skills. There's a whole skill tree you can go through, and eventually you get to God skills. And then there's more passive abilities, Collector Guild skills, passive God skills, and so on. God skills being related to, you know, I imagine in this case, who the associated god is of your person. For Conrad here, it's Sigmar. Pretty much, if you've played Elder Scrolls, then the equivalent of Talos, how he was a man who ascended to godhood because he was just that badass. And then, as you can see, you have a absolutely massive inventory, and it's all very clean. Like, that's one of the first things I want to point out. It's all very clean. It's right there for you to see. I can sit here and go through and just figure out real obviously what are the good values based on the green and red. Then there's going to be more specifics if I actually want to sit here and read it. There are actual kits, so the more you have equipped towards it, the more benefits you're going to get. Again, if you've played Diablo, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if you played any action RPG to some degree, you're probably familiar with this setup. So, basic stuff. The three main stats you're going to see is attack, defense, and utility. Utility being a variety of different things like counterattack damage, block chance, block damage, and so on. Or cost reduction, critical damage, etc., etc. And then attack, obviously what attack is, how much damage you're doing, and so on. And then defense being a mixture of your health values and how much damage and punishment you can actually take. Also, one thing I want to point out is pretty much everything in this game has a look. Check that out. So every time we change something, you're going to see it. That's something some games have not done right in the past, but most modern games tend to get that right, you know, giving your character an actual unique experience. Now, I will say, like, Inquisitor Martyr, for example, at launch, didn't really feel like it. Now, it's much better. Like, it's much more noticeable. Whereas, again, before, it was questionable if it really was or not. So, again, I have a bunch of items. I'm really not going to use any of these, but we're going to go ahead and move on. My stash is over here. So if I want to throw some stuff in the stash, I can. If I want to keep anything, but I don't. So we're just going to move right on to the next area. Around here somewhere, if I can actually remember where, there's actually a... No, I'm pretty sure that's like the Imperial throne room. Oh, it's this guy over here, I believe. Let's go talk to him real quick. Yeah, so he's pretty much the dude you can trade with. I don't know what relic hunts are yet. I haven't gotten to that point, but we can donate all of our items, which we're pretty much going to do. And as you can see... it makes our reputation go up. Reputation having more benefits later on in the game. So we're pretty much just going to get rid of everything because we don't really need it. And I mean, who needs money? Am I right? Money is for fools. We fight for the survival of man. The story as it... and then you actually do get money though. So like I get 100 gold crowns, tomes of knowledge, so on and so forth. Thank you for your good work. Here's a little reward. Thank you so much. You're so kind. What a sweet man. So the story basically is Magnus the Pious there was an attempted assassination on him, and as such, you're pretty much trying to figure out who the hell tried to do it. It's pretty clear that it was something chaos-oriented, and most of the enemies that I've seen in the game so far are pretty much chaos, which makes sense, considering the title of the game is Chaosbane. Chaos being the equivalent of demons, in this case. There's a little bloodletter right there. Look at him looking beautiful with his big long tongue and his big red sword made of fire and brimstone.
What's this?
Currently where we're going into is we've been led into a trap by this filthy beast man. Now, I'm not going to lie. I think the one thing I'm kind of sad they didn't do. I understand. I understand why they didn't do this, but still, one of the big things they didn't do is they didn't put in the old boys. I don't know what it is about all these games recently that I don't want to show no love to my sweet, sexy orcs, but they do not want to do it, and I am very upset about it. So anyway, let's actually talk about the combat for a minute. So first off, one of the big things you're going to notice is that the combat is actually meaty, fluid, you're moving around. Like, for example, here, I'm sitting here doing like a shield bash. That's my absolute favorite. When I get into a big crowd of enemies, and then I just start freaking charging right on through them. It takes up a lot of your actual, like, focus energy down there, your mana in this case, and it's effective for breaking out of huge hordes, which hopefully through this video you're actually going to see. Now again, one thing that this game has done is like Inquisitor Martyr, well more so like Diablo, there is a queue which actually gives you basically health. Your Q pretty much just being a health pot that's like a regeneration in this case for a cooldown, if I can speak and use my words like a big boy. But anyway, so yeah, basically after like a 30-second cooldown it comes back. As you can see, I've already got it back, and I'm going to press Q again because these boys hurt. We're going to pick one target, we're going to focus it, specifically the Ungor leader who betrayed us, the stupid bastard, and we're going to put down my little banner of the Empire here, which is going to provide me a damage bonus. And then I'm going to fall outside of it, but you know, that does not matter. We don't need it that badly. And now that we've killed him, this other guy is short work as we chop him to pieces. So to get a little bit closer of a view at some of these skills, the Banner of the Empire, this is the first level of it. It does provide a 20% damage bonus. It decreased my cooldowns by 20% and my energy cost by 20% as well. So pretty much you want to put that down in the midst of the beginning of a fight almost always. There's really no reason not to. Just that massive bonus that you get. So with each one of the different heroes, of course, you're going to have like differences and what their actual skills and what they're for. This character, I don't know if you can tell, but he's pretty much just a tank character. But he's also really good at taking out foes of like massive hordes of enemies. Get these little nerve ones out of my face. One other thing I really do like is certain abilities combo better than others. Like, check this out. So I'm going to sit here and kind of build up some of my mana a bit. And then, like, once you run out of mana, though, you're too tired and you're doing the equivalent of swinging with your hand to try to kill things. So, like, in case of enemy damage, how does that respond? Well, look at that. You see how little damage I'm doing as compared to these big, massive swings? And let's just... Oh, I missed. Let's try my... this one's kind of like a move forward, incisive strike type thing. Incisive breakthrough. You're continually building up your charge over here of your energy, but you're also still dishing out damage and moving. So, where else should we go? As I just sit here and cut through the hordes of Chaosbane. And this game throws a lot of enemies at you. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Some of the biggest hordes I think I've seen in one of these action RPG games. But I really like that, actually. And it just feels meaty. Like, I feel like an absolute monster. Now, again, I will... Being a huge Warhammer fan, of course, I'm playing a Warhammer game. And I'm also going to talk a bit about the lore. And then hopefully I'm going to talk a bit more about the aesthetics of the game first. Well, you know what? I'll talk about the aesthetics first. This game's fucking pretty. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but like, look around at the environments. Look at the blood splatters as we hit the enemies. Look at the ragdoll effects. It feels nice. All of it feels and looks nice. Again, when the blood gets thrown up all over the wall from when you're like smashing in the heads of your enemies. And then, like, you're just moving through. It very much looks like Diablo, but at the same point in time, this is very much a Warhammer aesthetic. Like, they fucking nailed it. I love it. But not just that. Although your dude is like an absolute monster who realistically probably wouldn't be able to do this, lore-wise, it makes more sense to me. Now, let me explain. Because, again, Warhammer nut. I'm going to talk a little bit about the lore. An Inquisitor Martyr, one of the biggest things that bothered me was the fact that you're an Inquisitor. Now, Inquisitors range from various types and abilities and power armor and all sorts of different things. However, from what I know of the lore, from what books I've read, including like the Eisenhorn series and Ravenel and so on, Inquisitors are total badasses for sure. But they cannot, or have not been shown, to fight through hordes of enemies by themselves. Whereas in that game, they have. Like, with their power armor, they're pretty much Space Marines. Like, if you pick the Crusader, you're pretty much an effing Space Marine. Which, don't get me wrong, there's badass Inquisitors out there in the lore. Like that one chick whose name fails me right now, who was at the Battle of Cadia. Who was able to sit there and fight with the enemy, but she was not alone. She wasn't able to just sit there and fight a horde of Chaos Space Marines like they were nothing. And even then, it's not like I hear about Inquisitors taking on Chaos Space Marines in a one-on-one fight. So, it's weird to me. In this game, however, it seems like I can pretty much chop through enemies, do the same thing. It is kind of unrealistic, but it's Warhammer Fantasy. Like, this guy isn't necessarily a Space Marine, but throughout the lore, there are various individuals who are just able to do shit like this. Like, they're able to fight. Like, take Karl Franz, for example. He's a badass son of a bitch. Like, there's no other way to put it. He's a bad son of a bitch who can go into the middle of a fight with all his equipment and just kick ass and take names. Or take Gortrick and Felix, for example. Gortrick being the Dwarf Slayer who literally cannot die. Now, the end times changed all that. But again, we're not looking at the end times. We're looking at the lore that came before. And basically, these individuals are just badasses who can just go through hordes of enemies and just beat the shit out of some of the toughest foes and come out maybe a little bloodied and bruised, but still alive. Whereas, like in this game, no one knows who Conrad Volin is. He's just an Empire soldier. But it's already been shown from the story that he fought in the initial Chaos invasions that was stopped by Magnus the Pious. And he was the sole survivor of his company. So, obviously, alright, well, this guy is a little something special. This dude's kind of badass. He's not just some nameless soldier, like, kind of he is, but at the same time he's not. So much so that he gets promoted to being, like, one of the Emperor's bodyguards or something like that. So, and again, I could be skewering this story a bit. But it's just that important. And I'm sitting here talking about unrealistic... Oh, shit. Well, we got a big foe here, and he's looking nasty as hell. So, the most unrealistic things I've seen, in this case, lore-wise, is we're sitting here fighting these big-ass, really annoying-sounding demons. But, you know, that's fine. Because, again, an individual like Karl Franz, with the power of Sigmar, is able to fight against greater demons. So, realistically, we don't really know, like, with this soldier and just what he's capable of doing. So, I'm probably posing a really bad argument here, but in summation, this just makes more sense to me. Like, it makes way more sense that I'm sitting here fighting demons. These are lesser demons. These are nobody demons. Like, sure, they're demons of Nurgle, but still, they're fucking nobodies. I'm not fighting a greater demon. Maybe eventually later on in the story I will. But if that's the case, sure, I can take on a greater demon with some sweet, sweet blessings from Sigmar, so it kind of makes sense. Anyway, to me it makes sense, and I could just be nitpicky, but again, with the idea of Inquisitor Martyr, it didn't really flow with me. That's just something I never got past, which to me, they should have literally just made a fucking game about the Space Marines. Like, just make it about the Space Marines, and they can have Psychers just like they actually do, or make the Psyker like a Primaris Psyker, not actually a Space Marine, but the old Primaris ones, where they were just really badass Psychers, or they could have just made him a librarian or anything like this. Like, it just made more sense. Inquisitors don't go through hordes of enemies like that. They really don't. Not as far as I know. It's more of a case of they investigate things, where now the game does have investigations. They're limited. Whereas a game like, what would be a good example? Imagine a game where the primary focus was more of like a crime drama, or something like that, and you're having to solve heresy throughout the galaxy. Hell, take something like LA Noire. Maybe that's a bit big budget, but still, that idea is that there should have been more of a focus on the thinking aspects, rather than just cutting through hordes of enemies, including Chaos Space Marines and greater demons and hell brutes and shit like that, where it's like, there's no fucking way. Like, there's just no way. So, and again, that's just the internal fanboy in me who's just sitting here playing the game. It's like, it's fun, it's not bad, it's just questionable, some of the shit you're doing as just a regular human being. Because at the end of the day, that's all you are. An Inquisitor is just a regular human being, like, who goes around and pretty much purges in the name of the Emperor. But again, they could have done like the Grey Knights. You know, they're like extra badass Space Marines who also have psychic abilities, who can still use all the weapons that we see in Inquisitor Martyr, and it could be completely understandable. And I mean, sure, there might have been the whole thing about with the assassin. What would you do with the assassin? Well, I mean, I'm sure I could come up with something if you gave me enough time. Regardless, we're back to Chaosbane. Let's talk about Chaosbane. Before I literally get up on my Warhammer 40k high horse and just keep talking all night long. The summation of this game is it's a lot of fun. Like, it's definitely, you can almost, like Diablo, there's a lot of loot to be had. There's a lot of enemies to fight. You'll sit here and level up and get better skills and stats and so on. There's at least 4 different main classes that you can currently play in the game. Honestly, if this game is successful and does really well, there'll be more, which is what I'm absolutely hoping for. This is probably one of the biggest Warhammer games I've played that I'm actually pretty hype about, and getting to play it has been an absolute blast. And if anything, I want to get in with some friends and start actually really trying out the multiplayer and the co-op elements to see how it expands from there. But again, this being a beta, things will change. More than likely, it'll be tiny things, maybe a couple of graphical tweaks here and there. But honestly, the game looks really nice for what it is already. It's a fun game, and it looks pretty as shit. So, like, I mean, honestly, they could pretty much release it like this, and I would still play it. I haven't seen much of the late game content yet, so there's still some stuff that could be in the cards for that. Oh, this is a big horde. Yeah, let's plop that big boy down, and let's just start hacking right through him. Glorious. Unless, oh, did I use my? Yeah, I used my bloodlust. Or no, I didn't. What did I do? I thought that was my bloodlust. Oh, there it goes. Now I'm attacking. Oh, right click. That's what I was doing wrong. I was pressing the wrong button. So bloodlust is kind of like if you played a Dynasty Warriors game. It's a Musou mode. It makes you really powerful and you can be able to fight through it. I was sitting here left clicking. That's why I couldn't figure it out. My bad. Apologies. I do not claim to be a pro at anything I play, unfortunately. Maybe BFME too. I was pretty good at that game. But anyway, this has been Commissar Bro. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed at least this first impressions of Warhammer Chaosbane. And I hope that you guys go out there and purchase a copy. It's going to be fun. It's already fun to me. It's already really pretty. And I just like hack and slash games, especially like Vermintide and stuff like that. That shit's just so fun to me. Like, I could play it all damn day. So having more Warhammer games, having more fun Warhammer games is absolutely wonderful as far as I'm concerned. And they can keep shoveling this shit at me, and I will just keep on gurgling it down. As long as it's good. I mean, don't get me wrong, certain games like Dawn of War 3 weren't that great at launch, but yeah, I mean, they got a little bit better, especially with the modding scene. Inquisitor Martyr was kind of rough at launch. It got better though, and it's definitely worth buying now. Space Hulk Deathwing, rough at launch, it's got better. So that's one thing I've noticed about a lot of these Warhammer developers is they absolutely they stick to their game and they make it better even if it's rough at launch. And I think a big part of that is they just don't have the budget to make their vision when they first get it. And with the Warhammer universe, you have so much in it. There's so much. It's such an in-depth universe with so much going on between Warhammer and Warhammer 40K. So honestly, it's a shame that not more of them don't get that opportunity to really make that dream Warhammer game. But I think that these guys are on the right fucking track. So I would highly recommend it. If you weren't considering it, that maybe you should. And with that, I have been CB. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day.